Hi, you are watching Revenge of Reddit. I never thought I'd be one of those guys posting a life story on Reddit. I'm 58, not really the type to vent online, but I've been sitting here in my half-empty house for hours, staring at a photo of my son and wondering where everything went wrong. Maybe typing this out will help. Maybe it'll help someone else too. So here goes. I'll start from last summer, the day my son, Ethan, came to visit with his fiancée, Megan. I hadn't seen him in months. He's 30, works in finance, lives about 2 hours away. Megan was. Well, let's just say she had that kind of smile that never really reached her eyes. Polite, fake, expensive. They came over for dinner, and everything seemed normal. We grilled out back, had a couple beers, caught up about work, sports, you name it. But then Ethan dropped the bomb. "Dad," he said, "Megan and I are thinking of moving back here. We found a house near the lake, the one you always loved." I remember smiling. "That's great news, son. You'll love it here. Want me to help with the down payment or something?" He laughed awkwardly. "Actually, about that. We were hoping to move in here, with you, just for a bit." I paused. "Here? You mean in my house?" Megan jumped in fast, all sugar and charm. "Just temporary. We're saving for our wedding and you have so much space here, Mr. Taylor. It'd really help us get started." Now, I'll admit, I wasn't thrilled about the idea. I'd been living alone since my wife passed 5 years ago. The house was my sanctuary. But Ethan's my only kid, and I missed having him around. So, I said yes. That was mistake number 1. They moved in the next week. At first it was fine. Ethan was working long hours remotely, and Megan was supposedly planning the wedding. I cooked, they cleaned sometimes, and we had family dinners again. For a while, it felt like old times, like my house was full again. But slowly, I started noticing things. Megan would spend hours in my study. Once I walked in and saw my financial documents open on the screen, stuff about my pension, investments, the deed to the house. She laughed it off, said she was just curious about retirement planning. Then Ethan started acting different, distant, secretive. He used to talk to me about everything. Now it was short answers and quiet conversations behind closed doors. One night, I heard them arguing in the guest room. Megan's voice was sharp. "I told you, if he doesn't sign it soon, we're screwed." Then silence. I didn't sleep that night. A week later, Megan cornered me in the kitchen. She had that sweet tone again, the one people use when they're about to ask for something big. "Mr. Taylor, have you ever thought about downsizing?" I laughed. "This house is my life. Built it with my own hands. Every room's got a memory." She smiled thinly. "Sure, but it's so big for one person. You could sell it, buy something cozy near town, travel. You've earned it." I shrugged it off, but that conversation stuck with me. Why was she so interested in my house? Then came the kicker. 2 weeks later, I got a call from my real estate agent, a friend I've known for 20 years. "Hey, John," he said, "got your paperwork ready for the sale. Just need your signature, and we can close next week." "What sale?" I asked, confused. "The lake house," he said. "Ethan and Megan said you're selling it. We've already got an offer. 8 million. Cash." My stomach dropped. I told him I hadn't signed or agreed to anything. He emailed me the documents. There, in the digital signature box, was my name. My real signature, forged perfectly. I couldn't breathe. I called Ethan immediately. He didn't answer. Megan texted me instead. "We'll talk when we get home. Don't do anything rash." That line, "Don't do anything rash," told me everything. When they came home that evening, I was waiting in the living room with the printed papers on the table. Ethan looked pale. Megan didn't even try to hide her confidence. "Dad," Ethan started, "I can explain." "Go ahead," I said quietly. He glanced at her, then at me. Megan's parents offered to help us buy a place, but the deal required collateral. We figured if we could temporarily move the deed to our names, just to secure the funding, then we'd switch it back. I stared at him. You forged my signature. That's not collateral, Ethan. That's fraud. Megan cut in, crossing her arms. Oh, don't be dramatic, John. You're sitting on a multi-million-dollar property you barely use. We were just trying to make it useful. I saw red. Useful? You tried to sell my damn home behind my back. Ethan's voice cracked. Dad, please. No, Ethan, I said. Pack your things. Both of you. Get out. Megan smirked. You can't just throw us out. We have rights. We've been living here. I didn't answer. I just picked up my phone and called my lawyer. They left that night. Or so I thought. The next morning, I went to check the guest room. Empty. But when I went into the garage, I noticed something strange. The lock on my safe was scratched. Inside the safe were my late wife's jewelry, her will, and a few old documents. The jewelry was gone. I called the police, filed a report, sent them the footage from my doorbell camera. They caught Megan 2 days later, trying to pawn one of my wife's necklaces. Ethan bailed her out. I didn't press charges immediately. I still believed maybe Ethan didn't know. Maybe he got dragged into this mess by her. But then, one night, I got another call from my realtor friend. John, I thought you should know. Megan and Ethan went ahead and signed another contract, this time listing you as deceased. Deceased. They'd literally declared me dead. That was the moment something in me broke, or maybe it woke up. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just made a plan. I met with my lawyer first thing the next morning. We gathered every document, every message, every scrap of evidence. Turns out, Megan had been digging for months, forging my e-signature on multiple documents, accessing my accounts, even applying for credit cards under my name. Ethan had helped, my own son. We traced transactions leading to a joint account in both their names. Over $220,000 siphoned slowly over the past year from my investments. When the police got involved, Ethan finally called me. Dad, please, he said, sobbing. Megan made me do it. I didn't know it would go this far. Then why didn't you stop her? I asked. He didn't answer. The case dragged on for months. Megan faced charges for fraud, identity theft, and forgery. Ethan got probation for cooperating, but our relationship was shattered. I sold the house anyway, not because I had to, but because I couldn't stand living there anymore. Every room felt poisoned. Every photo reminded me of the son I thought I knew. I moved into a smaller place near the mountains, quiet and peaceful. For a while, I thought that was the end of it. But life has a funny way of circling back. Because just last week, nearly a year after everything, Ethan showed up at my door. He looked thinner, older somehow. Megan had served a short sentence, apparently got out early for good behavior. They were still together. He stood there with that same nervous smile he had as a kid. Dad, he said softly, we're moving in tomorrow. I stared at him for a long time. Then I smiled back. Sure thing, son, I said, handing him a thick brown envelope. Inside was the contract, the finalized sale of the house they'd tried to steal, the one I'd sold for $8 million. Only this time, the buyer wasn't me. It was Megan's parents. And guess who forged their signatures? Ethan didn't even look inside the envelope at first. He just laughed nervously. Come on, Dad. Don't mess with me. I just leaned on the doorframe and looked at him. Really looked. His hair was a mess, his eyes hollow, and the expensive watch on his wrist looked like it was mocking him. Take it, I said. You'll want to read it. He hesitated, then opened the envelope. When his eyes landed on the papers, the color drained from his face. It was the house, My house. The same one he and Megan had tried to sell last year. The same one they'd nearly destroyed my life over. But the names on the contract weren't mine anymore. Buyer, Patricia and Donald Harper. Megan's parents. Seller, John Taylor. Me. And beneath it, stamped in thick, permanent ink, sale completed. Funds received. He looked up at me, confused. What is this? I smiled. It's the house you tried to steal, son. Only this time I made sure the deal went through legally. Megan's parents were the buyers. He blinked. You sold the house to them? Yup, I said. Cash deal. 8 million wired directly to my new account. Ethan took a step back. But they never bought anything. They didn't know, right? I finished for him. Yeah, that's the funny thing. Your fiancée forged their signatures this time. Same pattern, same handwriting, same notary stamp she used for mine. He froze. You remember when you said you were moving in tomorrow? I said quietly. Well, you technically can, because according to the county records, your lovely bride's parents now own this property. And guess who's currently being investigated for $8 million worth of real estate fraud? I paused for effect. Megan Harper. You could have heard a pin drop. Ethan's mouth opened, but no sound came out. His hands were shaking as he flipped through the papers again, desperately searching for something that would make sense. She didn't. She did, I interrupted. And don't worry, I didn't forge a thing. I just gave her the opportunity to hang herself with her own rope. See, after everything that happened last year, I learned a few things. About people, about revenge, and about patience. When Megan got out of jail, she went right back to her old habits. Fast-talking investors, forging documents, manipulating her parents for money. I knew she wouldn't change, so I let her think she'd won. I left breadcrumbs, whispers about me getting sick, wanting to finalize some estate plans, thinking of selling my house again. All through mutual acquaintances, never directly. It didn't take long for the rumor to reach her. Within weeks, I got a call from a notary who'd handled some of my paperwork before. He said someone had requested verification of my signature, but the request came from a Patricia Harper. I didn't even have to lift a finger. Ethan looked at me like he didn't recognize me anymore. Maybe he didn't. Dad, he said finally, voice trembling. You set her up. I laughed. Not cruelly, just tired. No, Ethan. She set herself up. I just stopped protecting her from the consequences. He shook his head. You could have told me. You could have warned me. Warned you, I snapped. You forged my name. You stole your mother's jewelry. You lied to my face. You want me to believe you would have done the right thing if I'd warned you. He didn't answer. I stepped closer. You know what I realized, Ethan? The reason Megan got to you was because she knew your weakness. Guilt. You've always hated disappointing people, and she used that. But the real disappointment isn't what you did to me. It's that you didn't stop her when you could have. He just stood there, staring at the floor. Then I said something I'd rehearsed in my head 100 times. You're not moving in, son. Not here. Not anywhere near me. This house isn't mine anymore, and neither are you. He left without another word. I thought that was the end of it. But a few days later, I got a call from the sheriff's office. Megan had been arrested again. Apparently, she'd tried to reverse the fake sale, forging my signature this time to return the property from her parents' names back into hers. But because the house had already been sold legally, and I'd reported her previous forgeries in full detail, the county flagged the documents immediately. The agents found her laptop, her fake IDs, even a folder full of forged legal seals she'd ordered online. She wasn't getting out this time. Ethan, on the other hand, tried to play the victim. Claimed he didn't know, that he was trapped, but the feds had enough messages between them to show he'd been helping coordinate the fake sale. Conspiracy, wire fraud, real estate forgery. They both went down. I remember sitting on my porch the night after the arrests, the mountain air cold against my face. I wasn't happy. I wasn't relieved. I was just empty. People think revenge feels good. That justice fixes something inside you, but the truth, it doesn't. It just leaves a different kind of hole. My son was gone, not dead. Worse, gone in a way that couldn't be undone. But I didn't regret what I did. I'd given him chance after chance, and he threw them all away for a woman who saw me as a walking retirement plan. So when the world turned on her, I didn't celebrate. I just sat there, watching the sun disappear behind the ridge, and whispered to myself, she earned every second of it. A month later, I got a letter from Ethan. I wasn't going to read it, but curiosity got the better of me. It was handwritten, messy, desperate. Dad, I know you probably hate me. I deserve that. But I want you to know, I didn't love her anymore. Not for a long time. She scared me. She said if I ever turned on her, she'd destroy me, destroy you too. I was weak, and I'm sorry. They're saying she might do time in federal prison. I might too. I don't blame you. I just hope someday you can remember who I was before all this. Love, Ethan. I read it twice. Then I folded it up and put it in my desk drawer. Haven't touched it since. 6 months passed. Life went quiet again. I started hiking, volunteering, rebuilding what was left of my peace. Then one morning, I got another knock on my door. It was a delivery driver, a small box in his hands. No return address. Inside, wrapped in plain brown paper, was something that made my throat tighten. My late wife's wedding ring. The same ring Megan had stolen years ago. There was a note. One sentence, scrawled in familiar handwriting. She said she pawned it, but I found it. Ethan. No signature, no apology this time. Just that one line. I didn't cry, but I sat there for a long time, holding that ring, feeling like the past, all of it, was finally fading into something that almost felt like peace. But if you're wondering where the $3.8 million went, well, let's just say I didn't keep it all. Half went into a trust, not for Ethan, not for Megan, but for the kids in town who'd lost their parents to fraud and addiction. People who never got a fair shot because someone else's greed tore their family apart. The rest, I used to build something small, a lakeside workshop where I fix up old boats, make furniture, talk to anyone who wanders in needing advice. Sometimes a young man will stop by, struggling with his choices, scared of becoming his father. I always tell them the same thing. Greed doesn't just take your money. It takes your name, your peace, your soul. Once you trade that for comfort, you'll never sleep the same again. And then I close up shop, pour a coffee, and watch the sunset over the same lake where I almost lost everything. Because, funny enough, that lake still reflects the house I built, the one I lost, the one I let go. Some nights, when the wind's just right, I think I can hear Megan's voice again, angry, desperate, promising she'd take everything. But she didn't. In the end, she gave me back something she never meant to. Clarity. And if Ethan ever finds his way back, if he ever truly becomes the man I once believed he could be, I'll be here, not waiting, just living. Because revenge might burn the poison out of your blood. But forgiveness, that's what lets you finally breathe again. 3 years passed after everything went down. 3 long, quiet years. I didn't move again, didn't remarry, didn't even bother dating. Some people called me lonely. I called it peace. I'd built a life out of simplicity. Coffee at sunrise, wood shavings on my hands, and the sound of the lake tapping against the dock. I didn't check social media, didn't look up old names. I let the past rot where it belonged. Until one morning in early fall, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Normally, I'd ignore it, but something made me answer. "Mr. Taylor," a woman's voice asked, "this is Officer Ramirez from the State Corrections Department. Your son asked us to contact you." My heart sank. "Ethan, is he—" "He's fine," she said quickly. "He's being released next week. He listed you as his emergency contact." For a second, I couldn't speak. I just sat there, listening to the hum on the line. "Thank you," I finally said, and hung up. I didn't know what I felt. Relief? Fear? Regret? Maybe all of it at once. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about him, where he'd go, what he'd do. Prison changes people, sometimes for better, sometimes not. The next morning, I drove down to town, bought a cheap burner phone, and texted the number he'd used in his last letter years ago. "Me. Heard you're getting out. You need a place to stay." It took 6 hours for a reply. "Ethan, you sure you want me there?" "Me. I didn't say I wanted you here. I said you need a place to stay." A pause. Then, "Ethan. Yeah. I guess I do." When I saw him at the station, I almost didn't recognize him. His hair was cut short, his skin pale, eyes heavy. Prison had stripped away whatever vanity he'd once had. But there was something new in him. Humility, maybe. Or just exhaustion. He stood awkwardly by the bench, duffel bag at his feet. "Dad," he said quietly. "Ethan." We stood there in silence for a while before I finally said, "Come on, let's get you home." He gave a small, uncertain smile. "Home." The drive was quiet. Every few miles he'd start to speak, then stop. I didn't push. There are some silences that need to breathe before words can survive in them. When we got to the cabin, he looked around, taking in the place. "You built all this?" "Yeah," I said. "Mostly with my hands. Helps clear the head." He nodded, touching the wood grain on the counter. "It's peaceful. It's supposed to be." He stayed with me that night. We didn't talk about Megan or the trial or the money, just small things. Fishing, the mountains, the stupid TV shows we used to watch when he was a kid. It felt fragile, like talking to a ghost that wasn't sure if it should exist. The next few weeks, he helped me around the shop, sanding boards, fixing hinges, learning to carve again. He wasn't good at it, but he was trying, really trying. One evening I caught him standing by the dock, staring out at the water. The sunset hit the lake just right, turning everything orange and gold. He said, almost to himself, "She died, you know." It took me a moment to realize who he meant. "Megan?" He nodded. "Overdose. They told me in there. She got out, relapsed, and—" He stopped. Guess she couldn't live without someone to manipulate. I didn't say anything. There wasn't anything left to say. Then he turned to me. "I kept hating you for what you did, for setting her up. But now I think you just showed her the mirror she refused to look into." I looked at him. "And what about you, Ethan? Did you look into yours?" He smiled sadly. "Every damn day. Over the next months, something started to heal between us. Not completely. I don't think that's possible after what happened. But enough that we could sit together without the ghost screaming in the room. He got a small job in town, helping at a repair shop. Started going to meetings, volunteering at a shelter. Sometimes I'd catch him fixing something broken, a chair, a watch, a toy, and I'd realize that maybe that's all he was trying to do with himself. Fix what was broken. Then, one night, I heard him on the phone outside. His voice was low, steady, calm. "I don't want the money, man," he said. "Just send it to the foundation. Yeah, the one my dad runs. I owe him that much." When he came back in, I didn't say a word. But that night, I slept better than I had in years. Winter came fast. The lake froze over, and the mountains turned white. Ethan stayed through Christmas. We didn't exchange gifts, just sat by the fire with coffee and quiet music. Halfway through the evening, he reached into his pocket and slid a small envelope across the table. "What's this?" I asked. "Just open it." Inside was a photo, old, faded, from years ago. Me, him, and his mother at the old house, covered in sawdust from building the deck. She had that big laugh she used to get when Ethan told a joke that didn't make sense. On the back, he'd written, "Before everything, before we forgot who we were." I swallowed hard. "I found it in one of Mom's albums," he said. "Thought you'd want it back." "Thanks," I said quietly. "I do." We didn't talk for a long time after that, but it was a good silence, a healing one. A year later, Ethan moved out, got his own place in town, small apartment, nothing fancy. Started seeing someone new, kind girl, quiet, the kind who works with animals. I met her once. She brought over homemade bread and called me sir. He looked happy, truly happy. And for the first time in years, I believed he might actually stay that way. Then one afternoon, I got a letter from him again. Just a single sheet. "Dad, you once told me, greed takes your soul. You were right. I lost mine for a while, but I think I've found it again. You don't have to forgive me. I just want you to know, I forgive myself, and I'm proud to be your son again. Love, E." I sat on the porch for hours after reading that. Watched the wind move through the trees, watched the water catch the light. And for the first time since my wife died, I let myself smile without guilt. People sometimes ask me, when they find out what happened, if I'd do it all again. The setup, the sting, the cold, quiet revenge. And my answer's always the same. Absolutely. Because it wasn't about payback, it was about truth, about showing people who they really are when the mask drops. Ethan had to lose everything, love, freedom, pride, before he could find himself again. And Megan? She chose her path. She burned everything and everyone she touched until there was nothing left but ashes. I don't celebrate her death, but I don't mourn it either. Some fires just burn themselves out. Last week, Ethan came by again. We sat on the dock, drinking coffee, watching the fog roll across the lake. He said, "You ever think about selling this place?" I laughed. "Not again, son." He grinned. "No, I mean, what if we built something next to it? A little cabin for the program. Guys like me who get out and have nowhere to go." I looked at him for a long moment. "You serious?" "Yeah," he said. "Let's build something good this time, together." And just like that, it felt like the story had finally come full circle. Not the way I'd imagined, but the way it needed to. We started the project in spring. Simple cabins, nothing fancy. Pine walls, small porches, a workshop in the back. Ethan handled the books. I handled the tools. We called it Second Dock. First one was where he tried to destroy me. This one was where we'd rebuild something better. Word spread fast. Local volunteers came by. Former inmates, counselors, old friends. Even the sheriff who'd arrested Ethan stopped by one day, shook his hand, and said, "Glad to see you're on the other side of it." And I thought, so am I. It's been 5 years now since I handed him that envelope. The one with the 8M sale contract. Feels like a lifetime. Every morning, I still wake up before dawn, make my coffee, and walk down to the water. The lake's calm, the world's quiet, and the reflection staring back at me doesn't look haunted anymore. Sometimes Ethan joins me. We don't talk much. We don't need to. Because forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering, without the pain controlling you anymore. I used to think revenge was the only way to end betrayal. Now I know better. The real revenge is living a life they can't destroy. And when strangers on the internet ask me, did it really happen? I always smile and say, let's just say this. My son once told me, "We're moving in tomorrow, Dad." And I smiled, handed him the $8 million contract. And in that moment, I stopped being a victim and started being free.